Hi, Caleb with Brownells here. Today we're going to be taking a look at the differences between these similar looking but very different firearms. Here in front of me I have the AKM, or your modern AK-47, and the VZ58. The only thing that's going to interchange between these two firearms is this right here, and that is that they both fire the same 7.62 by 39 caliber bullet. So just to get started here, we'll take a look at some of the external differences. Starting at the muzzle, they both have threaded muzzles. The primary difference between that is that your VZ58 is going to have a 14-in-1 right hand thread, whereas of course your AK is going to have your 14-in-1 left hand thread. Moving back from there, you'll notice that the gas systems are quite different. Of course, there's many different variants on the AK gas system. VZ58s are pretty much the same across the board. Moving back to your receivers, you'll see that this AK is a stamped receiver, which is the more common receiver for the AK platform. The VZ58 is going to be a solid machine steel billet receiver. There's no trunnions machined or pressed into them with rivets or anything like that, such as the AK. It's all going to be one solid piece. Moving on to the stocks, of course we have a wide variety of stocks for the AK platform. There's also a few different varieties for the VZ58. This one here happens to be the folding stock, which is common for tankers and armor units in the Czech military. So moving on from that, now we can get into some of the internal differences, and this is where it gets interesting. So let's go ahead and do a quick field strip, and I'll show you the exact differences between these guns, or the major differences I should say. So starting with the AK, we'll go ahead and remove our dust cover. Alright, take out our bolt carrier assembly with the piston. And if you'll notice, this is the adjustable K&S piston in this particular AK platform. So from here, of course, you remove the bolts. And that is it for our field strip. So I'll set that aside there and move on to the VZ58s. So on the VZ, we'll remove our dust cover. And this is also going to remove the striker spring. Yes, I said striker spring. It's quite different. We'll get into that in just a second. And our recoil spring. And if you'll notice, the dust cover is only half length compared to that of the AK. Remove our bolts and our bolt carrier. And if you'll notice, the bolt on this one's going to ride on the bottom of the carrier, and this piece back here is actually part of a striker assembly. Now, unlike the AK of course being hammer fired, this gun's actually striker fired, similar to your striker fired pistols and different handguns like that. Pretty much the same setup. Instead of that hammer coming forward and smacking the back of the firing pin, in this you have a striker that cocks back, and then when you release the sear drops, and then the striker shoots forward, and that is what hits the firing pin and ignites the primer. So huge difference as far as internal mechanisms on these two guns. And also I would like to note another interesting feature of this one, if you'll see it here, is a stripper clip guide. So whenever this firearm has the bolt locked back, also I would like to note that the VZ has a bolt hold open feature. So we'll get into that in a little bit with the differences in the magazines. But when the bolt is in the open position and a magazine's inserted into the bottom of the firearm, you can take a 7.62 by 39 standard stripper clip and load the rounds into the magazine without removing the magazine from the firearm. So another interesting feature there. The last major difference I'm going to cover is going to be the actual piston systems. Both of these guns are gas piston operated. The AK, known for being the long stroke piston, which means that the piston is attached to the bolt carrier assembly itself. So when you fire a round, the entire bolt assembly is going to reciprocate with the piston on it. VZ58, if you'll notice, the bolts does not have that. So the piston is going to be a short stroke piston, and I'll show you how that works here. So you see the piston here, not attached to the bolt carrier. The way this works is that once the gas passes through the gas port in the barrel, it's going to travel up and push this piston to the rear. And you can see that piston there protruding through the back where the bolt would be. It's going to strike the face of that bolt carrier, and that's what's going to send it back. So it operates separate from the bolt carrier, and it doesn't travel the full length. It travels a short length or short stroke. That's why it's known as the short stroke piston. From here, we'll go ahead and talk about the magazines. The magazines are very different as well, and they will not interchange with each other, although they do look quite similar. So if you'll notice on the back of the VZ58 magazine, there's this large rib that runs behind it. So what this is for is the notch that engages the bolt catch on the VZ58. So whenever the last round in the magazine has been fired, this notch will be engaging the bolt catch on the bottom of the receiver, and that is going to lock the bolt to the rear. Now you can't release the bolt catch without removing the magazine, but it makes it really easy to do some pretty quick reloads. You just remove the magazine, insert a new magazine, lightly pull back on the bolt's handle, and then it will load it, so you don't have to pull the full length of the bolt travel to load a new round in a fresh magazine. Also, a good thing to note, the VZ58 magazine is a lot lighter because it's made of aluminum. The AK magazine is stamped steel, so they're a bit heavier. Now, I would also like to note, this isn't a which firearm platform is better type video. They're both very relevant, both very cool designs. It's really going to come down to personal preference. Both of these firearms are battle-proven firearms in the 7.62 39 cartridge. So with that being said, it's going to really come down to which firearm you like best. Me personally, I can go either way with them. I love both of these firearm platforms. I've built a multitude of both of them, and they're both really cool designs, really cool innovative features on each one that kind of differentiate from each other. And with that being said, if you have any questions on these firearm platforms or any of the other firearm platforms similar to these, as always, feel free to give us a call on a tech line. We'll be happy to help you out, or leave us a comment below. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.